In a decision that reverberated across the globe and shattered a decades-long international norms, United States President Donald Trump announced the immediate resumption of nuclear weapon testing, ending a unilateral moratorium that had been in place for 33 years. The momentous declaration, which overturned a policy held since 1992, was made with dramatic timing, coming just moments before President Trump's high-profile summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea, a meeting intended to de-escalate economic tensions. The president framed the move as a necessary response to the action of other global powers, stating that the United States must prove its deterrence strength once again. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Trump elaborated on his directive to the Pentagon, which he referred to by its former name, the Department of War, instructing it to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis due to the testing programs of other countries. He warned that China's rapid nuclear weapons buildup was on a trajectory to place its arsenal on par with those of the United States and Russia within 5 years. This policy reversal ignites new fears of a global arms race and casts a dark shadow over the future of international arms control, particularly as the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or New START, the last remaining major nuclear arms control agreement between Washington and Moscow, is set to expire in February 2026. The announcement was met with immediate alarm by disarmament advocate Dr. Ira Halfin, a leading opponent of nuclear proliferation and former president of Physicians for Social Responsibility, expressed grave concerns, urging the White House to clarify its intention. He warned against the belief that enormous nuclear arsenals can be maintained indefinitely without catastrophic failure, stating grimly, "Our luck is going to run out at some point." The international reaction to President Trump's announcement was swift and sharp, with allies and adversaries alike expressing deep concerns over the potential for a new era of nuclear brinksmanship. Russia, which had recently conducted high-profile tests of its own new strategic systems, including the Burevestnik nuclear-powered cruise missiles and the Poseidon underwater drone, found itself at the center of the justifications for the American decision. The Kremlin, however, responded with a carefully worded statement, with spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasizing that Russia has not conducted any nuclear tests and that its recent trial of advanced weaponry should not be characterized as such. Peskov reiterated President Vladimir Putin's long-held position that Russia would only respond in kind if the United States were to abandon the testing moratorium first. The Kremlin dismissed Western intelligence claims of active Russian nuclear exercise as provocation and misinformation. China, the other nation cited by Trump, urged the United States to respect the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, even as Beijing continues to expand its own arsenal, which is estimated to have reached approximately 500 warheads. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization itself responded with caution, highlighting the profound risk of nuclear proliferation and stressing the vital role of international treaties in maintaining global security. The confluence of the unresolved war in Ukraine, mounting NATO pressure on Russia's border, and the increasingly close alignment between Moscow and Beijing has created a perilous geopolitical landscape, with the world's three preeminent nuclear superpowers, who collectively control over 9,700 warheads, now locked in a cycle of escalating mistrust and military modernization. Analysts warn that the risk of miscalculation has risen to levels not seen since the darkest days of the Cold War. While the official Kremlin response was measured, the broader political climate in Europe and Russia has grown increasingly volatile. Inflammatory rhetoric from prominent Russian figures has exacerbated tensions, as seen when former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev publicly called Belgian Defense Minister Theo Franken an imbecile, following the minister's statement that the US-led NATO alliance could wipe Moscow off the map. This heated exchange reflected dangerous deterioration in diplomatic discourse. In a sign of the heightened military posture across the continent, a senior German general declared that Germany is prepared and ready to take a leadership role for NATO troops stationed on the alliance's eastern flank to counter any potential Russian aggression. These developments underscore a continent on edge where the lines between defensive posturing and preparations for active conflicts are becoming increasingly blurred. The nuclear standoff, therefore, is not occurring in a vacuum, but is part of a wider security crisis that spans from the front lines in Ukraine to the highest level of military and political command in Western European capitals and Moscow, with each side viewing the other's action through a lens of suspicion and perceived hostility, creating a feedback loop of escalating military preparedness and bellicose language. Beyond the superpower rivalry, other global flashpoints underscore the widespread instability. In the Western Hemisphere, tensions flare between the United States and Venezuela, with Russia playing a significant role. Flight data confirmed the landing of a Russian Il-76 military transport aircraft in Venezuela, a plane reportedly linked to Moscow's defense ministry and Wagner-affiliated networks. This move was seen as a direct signal of support for its ally in Caracas and a challenge to Washington, which had recently deployed an aircraft carrier strike group to the Caribbean, accusing the Venezuelan government of involving in drug trafficking. Moscow defended its action, asserting Venezuela's right as a sovereign nation to pursue its own foreign and defense policies. This development illustrates the widening scope of U.S.-Russia competition, extending far beyond the traditional arenas of conflict in Europe and the Middle East. Meanwhile, Brazil was plunged into a state of shock and mourning following one of the deadliest police operations in its history. A massive raid targeting the notorious Red Command drug gang in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro resulted in a staggering death toll of at least 132 people. The operation sparked widespread outrage, with residents and international human rights organizations condemning the raid as a slaughter and demanding accountability for the excessive use of force. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva expressed his horror at the scale of the violence, highlighting the immense security challenge facing the nations just days before it is set to host the critical COP30 UN climate talks. The harrowing scenes of residents lining up the bodies of the dead laid bare the brutal realities of the country's controversial war on drug gangs and prompted urgent calls for fundamental reforms in law enforcement practice. If you have made it this far, congratulations, you have unlocked the truth. I want to ask you a quick question though. With President Trump's decision to resume U.S. nuclear testing, effectively ending a 33 years moratorium and citing Russian and Chinese actions, has the world been plunged into a reckless new arms race that makes a nuclear exchange more likely than ever before? And why? So in the debate, we want to hear your insightful opinion on where this is all heading in our community. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.